I'm sitting in my own living room, and I can't stop shivering. That's what a 72-year-old man told his doctor last winter. The heat was on, the coffee was hot, the house was warm, and yet his body wasn't. Let me ask you something. Why do you feel cold even when the house is warm? Not a little chilly, not winter cold. I mean bone-deep cold. Cold hands, cold feet, cold that follows you from the couch to the bed, cold that makes you layer sweaters indoors and still feel uncomfortable. Most people say the same thing. It's just my age. It's the weather. This is normal now, but here's the problem. It's not normal, and it's not harmless. Every single day, your body produces between 3,000 and 10,000 abnormal cells. Cells that should not be there. Cancerous cells. You're still alive because your immune system destroys them before they spread. That defense is carried out by specialized immune warriors called natural killer cells, NK cells. They work quietly, relentlessly, without you feeling a thing. But here's what almost no one tells you. When your core body temperature drops by just 1 degree Fahrenheit, the killing power of those immune cells drops by up to 30%. Not 5, not 10, 30. Now flip that around. When your body temperature rises, even slightly, those same immune cells become several times more effective. This is not theory. This has been documented in major medical literature in the U.S., including studies referenced by the National Institutes of Health. Temperature is not comfort. Temperature is control. Control over your immune system, control over your energy, control over how fast your body repairs itself or breaks down. That's why older adults who are constantly cold are also often the ones who feel exhausted, get sick more often, heal slower, and say things like, "I just don't feel like myself anymore." Cold is not the cause. Cold is the signal. Your body is telling you something fundamental is off. And here's the part that matters most. This has nothing to do with toughness, nothing to do with pushing through, nothing to do with accepting decline. Your body is not failing you, it's working with fewer resources than it needs. And once you understand why, the solution is not extreme, expensive, or complicated. But before we talk about causes, before we talk about fixes, you need to see how this plays out in real life. Because the cold doesn't arrive all at once. It creeps in quietly, through daily habits that look harmless, and it often starts with someone who believes they're doing everything right. Let me tell you about Eleanor. "I'm fine, I'm just getting older." That's Eleanor's answer. Every time, to everyone. Eleanor is 73 years old. She lives in northern Minnesota, in a small wooden house she and her husband bought decades ago. The mortgage is paid off. The street is quiet. Nothing about her life looks broken. Her husband passed away 5 years ago. Not suddenly, not dramatically, just time doing what time always does. Eleanor isn't poor. She isn't seriously sick. She doesn't see herself as fragile. She drives herself to the grocery store. She manages her bills. She prides herself on not needing help. Her mornings are predictable. She wakes up early, before the house fully warms. She pours a cup of coffee and wraps both hands around the mug, not for the taste, but for the heat. She keeps a light jacket on, inside the house, not because the heater is off, because her body never quite warms up. Breakfast is simple. Toast, cereal, whatever takes the least effort. She's not trying to be unhealthy. She's trying to get through the morning. By afternoon, she's sitting again, reading, watching television, waiting for the day to pass. At night, the TV stays on longer than it used to. Not for the show, for the noise. A blanket over her legs. That same jacket's still on. She checks the thermostat sometimes, just to confirm what she already knows. The house is warm. So she tells herself what millions of older Americans tell themselves. It's just aging. Winters are harsher now. Nothing is really wrong. And that belief keeps her from asking the most important question. Because when you're always cold, always tired, always getting up to use the bathroom, your body isn't complaining. It's warning you Today, I want to share 5 reasons adults over 70 commonly experience this. Reasons that are often dismissed, overlooked, or misunderstood. And no, this is not about fear. This is not about giving medical advice. This is about understanding what your body may be missing, and how small, realistic changes can restore something most people assume is gone for good. Before we go further, let me say this clearly. If you see yourself in Eleanor, if you recognize these habits, if this sounds like someone you love, you're not broken, you're not weak, and this is not something you have to accept. These patterns don't appear overnight. They build slowly, quietly, disguised as normal life. And Eleanor didn't notice them, because no one ever told her they mattered. Until someone did. Someone who walked into her home and saw the cold for what it really was. Not a season, not an age, but a message her body had been sending for years. Grandma, this isn't just winter. Her grandson didn't say it dramatically. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't argue. He had just arrived from California for a short visit. A few days, nothing special, and that's exactly why he noticed what Eleanor no longer did. He watched her eat breakfast, not what she ate, but how. Cold cereal, cold milk, toast gone cool before the second bite. No complaints, no comments, just habit. Later, he noticed how long she stayed in the chair. Hours passed without her standing up, not because she was tired, because moving felt uncomfortable. And when she handed him a mug from the kitchen, he felt it immediately. Her hands were cold, not a little chilly, cold enough to make him pause. He didn't lecture, didn't say, "You need to change," didn't turn it into a conversation about age. He waited until the next morning, before coffee, before breakfast. He asked a simple question. "Can I check your temperature?" Eleanor laughed it off. She wasn't sick. She felt fine. Still, she agreed. They used a basic digital thermometer. Nothing fancy, under the tongue, first thing in the morning. The number blinked. 97.0 degrees Fahrenheit. Not an emergency, not dramatic, but not normal either. That's when he said it, quietly, calmly. "Grandma, this isn't just winter." He explained just enough to make her listen. That body temperature isn't only about comfort. That when it stays low, systems slow down. That feeling cold all the time is often a sign, not a coincidence. Eleanor didn't panic. She didn't argue. She just sat there, thinking. For the first time in years, the cold didn't feel like something she had to endure. It felt like something that needed to be understood. That one number, 97.0, changed how she saw everything. Her food, her energy, her routines. Because suddenly the question wasn't, "Why am I cold?" It was, "What is my body missing?" And that question opens the door to 5 answers. 5 common reasons adults over 70 experience this every day, often without realizing the damage it causes. Here's the first thing Eleanor never thought mattered. Food temperature, not calories, not sugar, not fat. Temperature. For years, her meals followed the same pattern. A cold sandwich at lunch, salad straight from the fridge, cereal with cold milk in the morning. Easy, light. Healthy. That's what she believed. And like millions of Americans over 70, she chose these foods for the same reasons. They were quick, they didn't require cooking, and they felt gentle on the stomach. But what no one told her is this. Cold food doesn't just sit in your stomach. Your body has to heat it up first. Before digestion can even begin, your system must raise that food to body temperature. And that takes energy. Heat energy. In younger bodies, this isn't a big deal. They generate heat easily. But aging bodies don't work the same way. As we get older, our internal heat production slows, muscle mass decreases, metabolism becomes more fragile. So when someone over 70 eats cold food regularly, the body has to make a trade. It pulls heat away from where it's needed most, the core, the circulation, the immune system, just to warm the food enough to digest it. That's why many seniors feel colder after they eat. Not full, not satisfied, colder. This isn't a theory. Research published in U.S. medical journals shows that digestion of cold food increases energy demand and lowers core temperature, an effect that is significantly stronger in older adults. Eleanor didn't know any of this. She just knew she was cold all the time. Her grandson didn't give her a lecture. He didn't talk about studies. He did one thing. The next day, he heated up soup. Nothing fancy. Just a simple bowl of warm soup. Eleanor took a few spoonfuls, and then she paused. Not because it tasted amazing, because something felt different. The warmth didn't hit all at once. It spread slowly, from her stomach, outward. Her shoulders relaxed. Her hands stopped feeling numb. She didn't say anything at first, but later that afternoon, she noticed something that hadn't happened in a long time. She took off her jacket, inside the house. That moment mattered, not because soup cured her, not because warm food is magic, but because for the first time, she felt her body holding on to heat instead of losing it. This is why food temperature matters so much after 70. Warm meals don't force your body to work harder. They work with it. They protect your core temperature. They reduce energy loss. They help your body stay warm from the inside out. And for someone who already runs cold, that difference is enormous. This was only the first piece. One habit. One overlooked cause. But once Eleanor understood this, another pattern became impossible to ignore, because even with warm food, her hands were still cold. And that pointed to the second reason so many older adults feel cold. A reason that has nothing to do with food at all. The second of 5 reasons adults over 70 often overlook. Warm food helped, but it didn't solve everything. Eleanor noticed it that same evening. Her core felt better. Her shoulders were looser, but her hands, still cold. Her feet, still cold. That's when her grandson said something important. This doesn't feel like a heart problem. It feels like a circulation problem. And that distinction matters, because most older Americans hear the word circulation and immediately think heart disease, high risk, hospitals, medication. But poor circulation is not the same thing as heart failure. In many seniors, the heart is doing its job just fine. The problem is delivery. Blood carries heat. If warm blood doesn't reach your hands, feet, and skin, those areas will feel cold, no matter how warm your house is. Eleanor's daily routine made this worse. She spent long stretches sitting, watching TV, reading, scrolling, not because she was lazy, because Minnesota winters teach you to stay still. Ice on the sidewalks, fear of slipping, fear of falling. So she stayed inside. And when the body stays still long enough, blood flow slows down, especially to the extremities. This is why so many adults over 70 say the same thing. My hands are always freezing. My feet never warm up. I wear socks to bed, even in summer. That's not age, that's circulation. Here's the science in simple terms. Your heart pumps warm blood, but movement is what pushes it to the edges. When muscles contract, even lightly, they squeeze blood vessels and help move blood forward. No movement means no push, and without that push, warm blood pools in the core and never reaches the hands and feet. That's why movement equals heat delivery. Not intense exercise, not the gym, just movement. Eleanor's grandson suggested something simple. Before dinner, they stood up. They walked slowly from one end of the house to the other. Nothing fast, nothing risky. Then they stood at the counter and shifted weight from one foot to the other. A few minutes. That night, something unexpected happened. Eleanor took off her socks. Not because she was warm everywhere, but because her feet finally felt alive. The next day, her grandson checked something else. Her blood pressure. One arm first, then the other. The numbers weren't dangerous, but they weren't the same. There was a noticeable difference between the two arms. That gap told a quiet story. Blood wasn't moving evenly through her body. Again, this wasn't an emergency. It was a signal. And signals are only dangerous when ignored. This is why doctors often recommend walking for circulation, not for weight loss. Walking moves blood. Standing up moves blood. Even shifting in place moves blood. Heat follows blood. When blood flow improves, warmth follows. Eleanor didn't change her life overnight. She just stopped sitting for hours without moving. She stood up during commercials. She walked the hallway before meals. She moved, even when it felt unnecessary. And slowly, her hands started warming sooner. But one thing still didn't make sense. Even on days she moved more, even with warm meals, she sometimes felt cold deep inside. Not in her fingers, not in her toes, but everywhere. And that pointed to the third reason, one that doesn't show up on the surface at all. The third of 5 reasons adults over 70 often overlook. This one surprised Eleanor the most, because she didn't feel sick. She wasn't dizzy. She wasn't weak enough to worry. She wasn't anemic in the way people imagine anemia. No pale face, no fainting spells, no emergency. Her blood work came back with one phrase her doctor almost brushed past: borderline low. That's the danger, because when something is borderline, it's easy to ignore. But here's what matters. Iron is not about energy in the way coffee is. Iron is about oxygen, and oxygen is fuel. Every cell in your body uses oxygen to produce energy, and energy produces heat. No oxygen, no fuel, no fuel, no heat. When iron runs low, even slightly, your blood carries less oxygen. Your cells still work, but they work slower, and a slower system produces less warmth. This is why people with mild iron deficiency often say things like, "I'm not exhausted, just tired. I'm not freezing, just always cold." That just is doing a lot of damage. In older adults, iron absorption naturally declines. Appetite changes. Meals get smaller. Red meat disappears from the plate. Not because of a plan, because of convenience. Eleanor's diet looked fine on the surface. Toast, soup, salad, sandwiches. But it lacked iron-rich foods. And more importantly, it lacked the combination that helps iron absorb. Her doctor didn't prescribe heavy supplements. No aggressive treatment, just small changes. A few iron-rich foods added back in: spinach, beans, occasional lean red meat. And one simple rule: pair iron with vitamin C, because vitamin C dramatically improves iron absorption. Orange slices with meals, bell peppers, a splash of citrus, nothing extreme. Within weeks, Eleanor noticed something subtle. She wasn't warmer in flashes, she was warmer longer. The cold didn't rush back as quickly. The chill didn't settle as deeply. That's how iron works. Quietly, from the inside. This is why mild iron deficiency is so dangerous after 70. It doesn't announce itself. It drains heat slowly, and most people never test for it, because they're waiting to feel worse. But small deficiencies don't create big symptoms. They create persistent discomfort, cold that never fully leaves, energy that never fully returns. Small problem, big impact. Eleanor fixed part of the issue. Her food was warmer, her circulation was better, her oxygen delivery improved. Yet something still felt off. Some days, despite everything she was doing right, her body still felt like it was running on low power, and that led to the fourth reason, one that controls the body's internal thermostat itself. The fourth of 5 reasons adults over 70 often overlook. This wasn't an illness. That's what made it easy to miss. Eleanor wasn't sick. She didn't feel pain. She didn't feel dizzy. She just felt slower. Slower getting out of bed. Slower warming up in the morning. Slower shaking off the cold, and colder than she used to be. This is where many older Americans stop asking questions, because slowing down feels normal, feeling colder feels expected. But here's what most people don't realize. Your thyroid gland controls your body's metabolic speed. It decides how fast your cells turn fuel into energy, and energy creates heat. The easiest way to understand it is this. Your thyroid is your body's thermostat. When it runs strong, your body maintains warmth without effort. When it runs low, even slightly, everything cools down, not dramatically, quietly. That's what makes mild thyroid slowdown so dangerous after 70. It doesn't shut things off. It turns them down. Eleanor's blood tests didn't scream hypothyroidism. No red flags, no urgent calls. Her levels were technically within range, but they were low for her, and that distinction matters. In older adults, doctors often hesitate to treat mild thyroid changes. Symptoms overlap with aging: fatigue, cold sensitivity, dry skin, slower thinking. So the signs get labeled as normal, but normal doesn't mean optimal. When thyroid output drops, your metabolism slows. Slower metabolism means less internal heat. Less heat means your body struggles to stay warm, even in a heated house. This is why people with mild thyroid slow down often say, "I'm cold even when everyone else is comfortable. I wear sweaters indoors. I never seem to warm up." Sound familiar? Eleanor's doctor explained it gently. "Your thermostat is running low," he said. "Not broken. Just lower than it should be." They didn't rush into heavy medication. They didn't panic. They monitored, adjusted, supported her metabolism. Within weeks, Eleanor noticed something important. Mornings felt different. She didn't need the jacket right away. Her hands warmed faster. Her energy didn't dip as early in the day. She wasn't suddenly young again. She was balanced. That's the goal. This is why thyroid health matters so much for older Americans. Not because it causes dramatic illness, but because it quietly decides how warm, alert, and resilient your body feels every day. Eleanor now understood 4 things. Warm food mattered. Movement mattered. Oxygen delivery mattered. Her internal thermostat mattered. And yet, one final piece was still missing, because even with everything else improving, her body still struggled to generate heat on its own. And that leads to the 5th and final reason. The one most people assume is unavoidable, but isn't. The 5th and final reason adults over 70 often overlook. This was the missing piece, the one that made everything else finally make sense. Because food helped. Circulation helped, iron helped, thyroid balance helped. But something deeper was still limiting Eleanor's ability to stay warm. Heat doesn't just come from digestion. It doesn't just come from blood flow. Heat is produced. And the primary place it's produced is muscle. Nearly 40% of your body's heat comes from muscle tissue. Not from movement alone, but from constant, tiny contractions that happen even when you're sitting still. That's why muscle is your body's internal heater. Eleanor didn't realize how much she had lost. She used to walk every morning with her husband. Same route, same pace, not exercise, just life. After he passed, the walk stopped. Not suddenly, not intentionally. One morning became 2, 2 became weeks, then years. She didn't think of it as losing muscle. She thought of it as adjusting, driving instead of walking, sitting instead of standing, resting instead of moving. And muscle loss doesn't announce itself. You don't wake up one day without it. You lose a little every month. After 70, that loss accelerates. And when muscle goes, heat production goes with it. That's why many older adults say, "I feel cold even when I'm not doing anything." That's not imagination, that's physics. Eleanor's grandson didn't suggest a gym. He didn't talk about weights. He asked her to stand up from the chair, then sit back down. A few times, they did it together. In the living room, holding the armrest. No rush. Later, they stood at the kitchen counter and pushed against it lightly. Wall push-ups, nothing dramatic. 10 minutes. That was it. No sweat, no strain. But something shifted. Because muscle doesn't need intensity, it needs consistency. When muscle begins to return, even slightly, heat production increases. Within weeks, Eleanor noticed something she hadn't felt in years. Warmth that came from inside, not from coffee, not from layers, from her own body. She still moved slowly. She still rested when she needed to. But she no longer felt fragile. That's the difference. Muscle doesn't just make you stronger, it makes you resilient. It gives your body the ability to regulate itself, to stay warm, to stay balanced, to stay alive in a deeper way. This is why muscle loss belongs at the end of this story, because it ties everything together. Warm food protects heat. Circulation delivers it. Iron fuels it. Thyroid regulates it. Muscle creates it. And the most important part? This is not about reversing age. It's about reclaiming capacity. Eleanor didn't become a different person. She became herself again, just warmer. And with that warmth came something unexpected. Confidence. Because once your body stops fighting the cold, it has energy for everything else. Nothing dramatic happened the next day. Eleanor didn't wake up feeling new. She didn't throw away her sweaters. She didn't suddenly feel energetic. The change came quietly. The first thing she noticed was the morning. She still woke up early. She still made coffee, but she didn't reach for the jacket right away. Not because she was warm, because she wasn't cold. That difference mattered. Cold used to greet her the moment her feet touched the floor. Now, it came later. Sometimes, much later. Some mornings it didn't come at all. Sleep changed next. She started sleeping deeper, longer stretches, fewer restless hours. She didn't wake up shivering anymore, didn't need to pull the blanket tighter around her shoulders. Her body wasn't fighting the night. During the day, small things shifted. She sat without a blanket. She stood up without bracing herself. She walked across the house without planning at first. And slowly, almost without noticing, she stopped layering so much. One sweater instead of two. No jacket indoors. Not because someone told her to, because her body no longer demanded it. There was no single moment where everything clicked. Just a series of quiet confirmations. Warm meals became routine. Movement became habit. Standing up didn't feel like effort anymore. And one morning, her grandson asked the same question he had asked weeks earlier. "Can we check your temperature again?" Same thermometer, same time of day. Before food, before coffee. Eleanor didn't expect much. The number appeared. 98.1 degrees Fahrenheit. She stared at it longer than she expected. Not because of the number itself, but because of what it represented. Consistency. Her body wasn't spiking warm, it was staying warm. That's when she said the sentence that stopped everything. I didn't realize how cold I had been living. Not cold as in temperature, cold as in cautious, restricted, shrunk. She hadn't noticed how much of her life had been shaped around avoiding discomfort, sitting instead of moving, layering instead of fixing the cause, accepting instead of questioning. The warmth didn't just change how she felt physically, it changed how she moved through her day. She lingered longer in the kitchen. She stood more. She walked without thinking about it. Her world felt larger again. And that's the part people miss. This isn't about warmth alone. It's about capacity. When your body stops spending all its energy just trying to stay warm, it has energy for living. Now, here's where most advice goes wrong. This is where people say, do all of this now. Change everything. Follow this plan exactly. That's not how Eleanor did it, and it's not how anyone over 70 should. Her approach was simple. One change at a time, not a checklist, not a challenge, not pressure, just permission. Week 1 wasn't about fixing everything. It was about noticing. She noticed how cold mornings felt. She noticed how food made her feel after eating. She noticed when she sat too long. Awareness came first. Week 2 was about warmth, not exercise, not supplements, warm meals, warm drinks. Nothing cold first thing in the morning. That alone made a difference. Week 3 was about movement, not workouts, not steps. Standing up more often, walking short distances, using her body the way it was meant to be used. Week 4 was about support. Checking her levels, asking questions, understanding her body instead of assuming it was failing. There was no rush, because rushing sends the wrong message. It tells the body it's broken. Eleanor didn't need fixing. She needed conditions that allowed her body to do what it already knew how to do. Stay warm, stay balanced, stay alive. And that's the most important takeaway here. You don't need to become someone else. You don't need to push harder. You need to remove the quiet drains that steal heat from your body every day. The cold you've been living with isn't your fate. It's feedback. And once you listen to it, once you respond slowly, respectfully, consistently, your body responds back, not with drama, with warmth. There's a belief many people quietly accept after 70. That feeling cold is part of getting older. That shivering is normal. That layering up and enduring it is just life now. But that belief is wrong. Aging does not mean cold. Cold is not a requirement of growing older, and it is not something your body is asking you to tolerate. When your body feels cold all the time, it isn't giving up. It's asking for support. Warmth is not a luxury. It's a biological need. Your immune system depends on it. Your circulation depends on it. Your energy, your balance, your resilience, all depend on your ability to maintain internal heat. Cold is not toughness, it's not discipline, and it's not harmless. It slows repair. It weakens defense. It quietly shrinks the way you live. Eleanor didn't become younger. She didn't reverse time. She simply stopped losing heat faster than her body could make it. And once that balance returned, something deeper returned with it. Confidence, movement, choice. She wasn't planning her days around staying warm anymore. She was living inside a body that could protect itself again. And that's what this story is really about. Not fear, not diagnoses, not rules. It's about listening to signals instead of dismissing them. About respecting the body instead of enduring discomfort. So let me ask you this. How many times today did your body ask for warmth, and you ignored it? Not because you didn't care, but because you were told it was normal. Leave a comment below. Be honest with yourself first. And if this story helped you understand your body a little better, subscribe. Because next time, I'm sharing 5 everyday foods that quietly harm people over 70. Foods most seniors eat without realizing the damage they're doing. You don't want to miss that. Thank you for watching. Staying warm is not comfort, it's dignity.